Silent orbit, strange. Truths of the universe explained slowly is not a lecture on astronomy. It is a gentle journey where the strangest truths of the universe are told in a slow, breathing rhythm so that you may listen not only to the stars, but also to yourself. Imagine space exhaling, not in haste, not in an explosion, just expanding. And within that quiet expansion, there is room for deeply human questions. Who are we? How small are we? And does being small truly mean being insignificant? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Know where you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." Tonight, we will not attempt to decipher the universe. We will simply be present within it and allow those strange truths to lull us into a peaceful orbit. Before everything began, perhaps there was no sound at all. No explosion tearing open the darkness. No blinding flare like fireworks across the fabric of the cosmos. What we call the Big Bang, when seen through the lens of modern science, was not a bang. It was an expansion. A slow, persistent unfolding as though space itself were exhaling. Imagine holding a small balloon in your hands. On its surface, you draw tiny dots to represent galaxies. As you breathe into it gently, the balloon stretches. The dots do not run anywhere on their own. They simply drift farther apart because the surface itself is expanding. No dot is the center. There is no outer edge to fall from. Our universe is like that. Light from distant galaxies is stretched, becoming redder, a phenomenon astronomers call redshift. And somewhere in the faint microwave glow that blankets the sky, the cosmic microwave background still whispers of a time when everything was closer, hotter, denser. Not to frighten us, but to remind us that existence carries within it a history of opening. There is no absolute center in the universe. Every place may regard itself as the center because from anywhere we see galaxies moving away. The idea can make us feel small, and yet it can also bring a strange comfort. If there is no single center, then you here in this quiet room are not on the edge of anything. You are exactly where the universe is unfolding. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The universe may be expanding out there, galaxies drifting silently through immeasurable space. But within your inner landscape, there is a still point you can always return to. When we understand that the Big Bang was not a violent detonation, but a continuous opening, we may begin to see our own lives differently. There are moments that seem chaotic, as if everything were collapsing. But perhaps they are simply expansions, new spaces being created for us to grow. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." Perhaps the universe's primordial chaos was not meant to destroy, but to create stars. And perhaps the turbulence within us serves the same quiet purpose. Tonight you do not need to picture complex equations or unimaginable numbers. Just feel your breath. Inhale and exhale. Space is expanding, and within that expansion there is room for peace. The universe did not explode to frighten you. It opened slowly, patiently, inviting you to open with it. And as you lie here in a universe without a fixed center, you may gently realize you are not lost. You are simply drifting in a peaceful orbit where everything begins with a breath. There are stars that no longer burn. Not because they were suddenly extinguished, not because of some cosmic accident. They have simply exhausted their fuel. After billions of radiant years, they slow, they cool, they contract, and they become another form of existence, quiet, dense, enduring. In astronomy, they are called white dwarfs. Imagine a star much like our sun. For most of its life, it is a vast nuclear furnace where hydrogen fuses into helium, releasing light and warmth. But one day, the fuel runs thin. The core collapses under its own gravity. The outer layers are cast off into space, leaving behind a small, hot, compact core, no larger than Earth yet, carrying nearly the mass of an entire star. Over time, that core cools. And when the temperature drops low enough, the carbon and oxygen ions within it begin to arrange themselves into a crystalline lattice, a process scientists call crystallization, BPM 37093. A white dwarf about 50 light-years from us is the most famous example. The media gave it a poetic name, Lucy, because much of its core has crystallized into a solid form of carbon like a colossal diamond, a star becoming a diamond. It sounds like a fairy tale, but it is physics. And within that truth, there is a quiet and unexpected beauty. Lucy's light is no longer brilliant. It no longer blazes like young stars. Yet it still exists, not as flame, but as structure, order, crystal. Perhaps this invites a gentle thought: light may die, but it does not vanish. It only changes form. Albert Camus wrote in The Myth of Sisyphus, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. Even when a star enters its winter, perhaps within it there remains another kind of summer, no longer heat, but the memory of heat. The future of our sun will be much the same. In about 5 billion years, it will swell into a red giant, engulfing the nearest planets, then slowly casting off its outer shell. The remaining core will shrink into a white dwarf, and far beyond that, it too will cool, crystallize, becoming a silent mass of carbon drifting through space. The thought can make us shiver. But if we look more slowly, it carries a profound stillness. There is no sound in that crystallization, no drama, only time so vast that all human notions of ending feel brief and fragile by comparison. Marcus Aurelius reminded us in Meditations, everything's destiny is to change, to be transformed, to perish, so that new things can be born. The universe does not see the cooling of a star as tragedy. It is simply transformation. And perhaps the same is true in our own lives. There are dreams that once burned brightly, then grew quiet. Feelings that once flared with heat, then softened. We may think they have gone out, but perhaps they are merely crystallizing into another form, steadier, deeper, no longer a dazzling flame, but a silent structure within us. When we look up at the night sky somewhere, a faint white dwarf's light may be touching our eyes. A dim glow, yet one that has endured through epochs beyond imagination. It is no longer youthful fire, but it is a witness to time. And in that ancient presence, there is a gentle whisper: everything changes, but nothing entirely disappears. Even when a star no longer burns, it remains. Even when a part of us seems to have grown quiet, it still exists, perhaps as a crystal of memory, a structure of experience, a new depth of understanding. Tonight, as you lie still and close your eyes, imagine those cooled stars, not as a dark graveyard, but as a museum of time, where each crystal is a story completed. No more noise, no more pressure to shine, only presence, and within that presence, a serene beauty. You do not have to burn forever to have value. Sometimes growing quiet is another form of radiance, a light that no longer flares yet still endures softly within the endless orbit of the night. There are places in the universe where night never comes, not because they have two suns, not because light floods in from every direction, but because they lie too close to their source of fire, so close that they are never allowed to cool. KELT 9b is such a world. It orbits a massive blue star in less than 2 Earth days. The distance between planet and star is so small that gravity stretches the planet into a slightly distorted shape. One side always faces its star, enduring temperatures above 4,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of many small stars. There are no oceans there, no white clouds, no gentle evenings, only metals vaporizing, only atoms torn from their bonds. The atmosphere of KELT 9b is being blown away into space, trailing behind it like a plume of smoke in the vacuum. A planet evaporating. When we hear this, we may feel a strange tenderness. Though it is only a giant sphere of gas without life, without awareness, the image of a world that never rests, forever stretched by gravity, forever subjected to extreme heat, there is something deeply human in it. We often imagine that every planet finds a stable orbit, that everything born will eventually reach equilibrium. But the universe does not operate according to our gentler wishes. Some worlds are born too close. Some orbits are trials from the very beginning. And perhaps in each human life there are seasons like that. Days when we feel too close to the sun of pressure, too close to the expectations of others, too close to standards that never allow us to cool. We wake already overheated. We lie down, yet the mind continues to smolder. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." But he did not say that chaos would be painless. Turbulence may create a dancing star. It may also burn. KELT 9b has no choice. It is held in that orbit by gravity. It cannot step back. And in that powerlessness, it continues to revolve, continues to endure. Perhaps what touches us most is not the temperature, but the image of distortion. Gravity does not merely hold, it reshapes. The planet is no longer a perfect sphere. It is slightly warped, as though being pulled toward one side. In life, there are invisible forces like that. The pull of responsibility, the pull of fear of being left behind, the pull of the desire to be recognized. They can cause us to lose our original balance. We become distorted in thought, in feeling, in the way we see ourselves. And when that happens, we may blame ourselves. Why am I not steadier? But perhaps the truer question is, what am I orbiting? Marcus Aurelius reminded us in Meditations, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. If happiness does not lie in enduring ever higher temperatures, but in how we understand our own orbit, then perhaps what we need is not greater strength, but greater awareness. Not everything born is stable. Not every orbit is gentle. And that does not render their existence meaningless. KELT 9b, though it is evaporating, is still part of the cosmic tapestry. It tells us about limits, about what happens when distance grows too small, about the cost of being too near the source of flame. Tonight, as you lie still, imagine that distant world. Not to be afraid, but to gently recognize that if you are feeling too hot, too tense, too stretched, it does not mean you are weak. Perhaps you are simply orbiting too close, and healing is not always another revolution of endurance. Sometimes it begins with the realization that you can shift. The universe is filled with harsh worlds, but it is also filled with vast spaces where temperatures are softer, where light does not scorch. You are not KELT 9b. You have the capacity to adjust your distance from the fires in your life. And as you close your eyes, let your breath become your new orbit. Inhale and exhale. Not to burn brighter, only to find balance again where you may exist without slowly evaporating in silence. There is a planet where the ground may shimmer like diamonds. At least that was how people once imagined it when astronomers discovered 55 Cancri, a super-Earth orbiting very close to its star, about 40 light-years from us. Early analyses suggested it might be rich in carbon, and under the immense pressure within its core, that carbon could crystallize into a lattice structure, what on Earth we call diamond. A diamond planet. The phrase alone is enough to set the imagination ablaze. Diamond, symbol of eternity, of promise, of the most precious gift a human being can offer. But pause for a moment and breathe more slowly. A diamond in physical terms is only carbon arranged in a stable crystalline lattice. Nothing more, nothing less. It does not know it is precious. It does not know it is set into wedding rings locked in safes displayed in glittering advertisements. Its value does not reside in the material itself. It resides in the human gaze. If somewhere in the universe there are planets where diamond is not an exception but the norm, if the surface of a world is made of what we call rare, then what becomes of our notion of preciousness? Perhaps it dissolves like a gentle illusion. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote in Being a Nothingness, value derives its being from its exigency, not its reality. Value does not inherently exist within objects. It arises from need, from context, from human consciousness. A diamond in a desert where water is the rarest substance would not save anyone from thirst. And so 55 Cancri becomes a distant mirror reflecting the way we define what is precious. Perhaps this does not apply only to matter. It applies to us as well. We grow up within systems of measurement, grades, money, status, recognition. We learn to believe that some things are worth more than others, that some people are more successful, more valuable. And sometimes in quiet nights we wonder whether we are valuable enough. But if value is relative, if it depends on the frame of reference, then perhaps that question must be asked again. In another frame, the qualities we consider small may become rare. Gentleness, the ability to listen, patience. On a planet where everyone speaks loudly, the one who knows how to be silent may be the true diamond. Marcus Aurelius reminds us in Meditations, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind. If we constantly think of value according to external standards, the mind is drawn into an endless comparison. But if we shift our gaze, if we realize that value is not fixed, not absolute, we may begin to breathe more lightly. Whether 55 Cancri is truly a diamond planet in the strict physical sense or not, it still carries a gentle lesson. It reminds us that the universe is vast enough that what we call rare may be common elsewhere, and what we overlook may be singular in another context. Perhaps the most precious thing is not the rarest thing, but the thing we choose to cherish. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in The Gay Science, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Value is like that. It depends on the music we are hearing. If we listen to a different melody, we will see a different diamond. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine that distant, shimmering world. Not to long for it, not to compare, but to recognize that its brightness does not make your earth less meaningful. Value does not lie in the structure of carbon. It lies in the way we see. And when you look at yourself with all the things that seem ordinary, you may discover something quietly luminous that you once overlooked. You do not need to become a diamond planet to have meaning. Sometimes it is enough to exist within your own orbit, and to know that your worth does not depend on rarity, but on the way you are present in this world. Let that thought settle gently, like a crystal forming slowly in the dark, not because it is rare, but because it is simply itself. There are planets that no longer have a sun. They do not orbit any star. There is no familiar trajectory, no periodic light to mark day and night. They once belonged to a stellar system, once moved within a certain order, but then through violent gravitational interactions they were cast outward. Like a stone flung from a circle, astronomers call them rogue planets, wandering worlds. Imagine a planet thrown into the darkness between the stars. No more dawn, no more reflected light across its surface. only dense black space and silence. If we follow our intuition, we might think this is the end. A planet without a host star must surely freeze, die, become a lifeless rock drifting forever through the night. But the universe is not so simple. Some studies suggest that if a rogue planet is massive enough, if it possesses a thick atmosphere to retain heat, if its core remains geothermally active, then beneath its frozen crust there may exist liquid oceans, no sunlight, yet still warmth within. A lost planet, but not dead. And when we consider this, something within us stirs gently. How many times in life have we felt pushed out of orbit, separated from a familiar community, from a former job, from a relationship that once felt like our center? Great changes can make us feel like rogue planets no longer circling any source of light. We may ask ourselves, where am I drifting? Do I belong anywhere at all? But perhaps like those wandering worlds, we too carry a core within. Carl Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." The gravitational collisions of life may push us from our former orbit, but they do not define our entire nature. What sustains us is not external light, but internal heat. Rogue planets drift in darkness, yet that darkness is not entirely empty. The space between stars is a realm of profound stillness, no sound, no pressure to shine, only slow movement across millions of years. Perhaps sometimes being separated from a familiar source of light becomes an opportunity to hear more clearly the rhythm of our own heart. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "One must learn to love oneself with a wholesome and healthy love, so that one can bear to be with oneself." A wandering planet must be with itself in endless darkness, and perhaps so must we. To be lost does not mean to be dead. To be lost may be a form of freedom we have not yet learned to recognize. When there is no fixed orbit, we are no longer bound to a single loop. We may drift under other forces, explore other spaces. Not all stability is good, and not every separation is catastrophe. Marcus Aurelius reminded us in Meditations, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." If the universe accepts change as a natural part of its being, perhaps we too can learn to accept the moments when we are pushed out. Tonight, as you lie still, imagine a silent planet drifting through the void between stars. No light, no sound. Yet within it, deep beneath the ice, there is warmth. There is the slow turning of a core. Perhaps you are like that. Perhaps even if the outside feels dark, even if you feel detached from any familiar orbit within you, there remains a source of heat, a capacity for life, a hidden ocean of emotion and meaning. Not every planet needs a sun to endure, and not every human being needs an external center to have worth. Let that thought settle like a soft layer of snow. Let your breath become a gentle geothermal warmth. You may have drifted from what was familiar, but you have not lost the capacity to live. In the darkness of the universe, there are worlds that quietly persist, and in the long nights of the soul, so do you. As long as there is even a small warmth within you, have never truly vanished from the orbit of life. There is a place at the center of the Milky Way where there are no vineyards, no oak barrels, no banquet tables. And yet scientists have detected there a molecule whose scent resembles rum and raspberries. Sagittarius B2, a vast molecular cloud about 25,000 light-years away, is one of the richest chemical regions known in the universe. Within its cold gas and dense dust, astronomers have found ethyl formate, a complex organic compound, a familiar flavor in distant space. It sounds like a curious tale, but what is truly astonishing is not the taste itself, It is the fact that the universe in its cold darkness can give rise to complex molecules, the earliest building blocks of prebiotic chemistry. Before life, before cells, even before Earth was formed. In clouds like Sagittarius B, two carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen combined in subtle ways. No guiding hand, no consciousness, only the laws of physics and time. And from those slow interactions, organic molecules emerged. Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "We are made of star stuff." The phrase is not merely poetic. It is an accurate description of the origin of the atoms in our bodies. The carbon in your cells was once forged in the heart of a star, and before it became part of life, it wandered through molecular clouds like Sagittarius B2. This can make us pause. We often feel small before the universe. But if the universe itself organized the ingredients that would one day form life, then our presence is not entirely alien. We are not objects dropped into a cold void. We are outcomes of that very chemistry. And that is both strange and intimate. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditation constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul. Though it is a philosophical metaphor, it evokes a gentle image, everything connected within a vast structure. The molecules in Sagittarius B2 and the molecules in your body do not belong to two separate stories. They are different chapters of the same book. When we hear that the center of the Milky Way smells like rum, we smile at the playful side of science. But deeper still, it is a reminder what we think of as distinctly human taste. Scent sensation has roots in cosmic chemistry. The universe does not only create stars and planets, it creates the possibility of life. And if it can do so within cold clouds, far from direct starlight, perhaps within the darker regions of our own lives, something too is quietly forming. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." Chaos is not always destruction. It can be the environment of creation. Sagittarius B2 appears chaotic, a cloud of gas and dust, yet within that seeming disorder structure is forming. Perhaps during the times when our lives feel tangled, unclear, obscured, there are molecules of something new arranging themselves. We do not see the entire structure, but that does not mean it is not there. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine a vast cloud at the center of the Milky Way. No noise, no urgency. Only atoms slowly combining according to their quiet laws. You are like that too. Within you, silent processes are unfolding. Thoughts, memories, emotions, reorganizing in ways you may not yet perceive. There is no need to force them into shape immediately. The universe had billions of years to prepare for life. You may allow yourself a few moments of stillness. Sagittarius B2 does not know it is creating materials for the future. It simply exists according to its nature. And perhaps the most healing realization tonight is this: you do not need to understand every process unfolding within you. It is enough to trust that from small atoms from clouds that seem obscure, something may take form. Strange, yet familiar. Like the scent of something you have never tasted, and yet somehow it feels close. There are worlds that almost were, almost kept their oceans, almost held on to stable atmospheres, almost sustained life. Mars once had flowing rivers. The dry valleys carved into its red surface are traces of water that gentle solvent life so dearly loves. Perhaps billions of years ago it was warmer, wetter. But then its magnetic field weakened. Its atmosphere was stripped away by the solar wind. The water evaporated or froze. Mars became a cold memory of what might have been. Venus as well. Some models suggest it may once have held shallow oceans, but the greenhouse effect ran out of control. Temperatures soared. The surface became a furnace, a world that nearly resembled Earth but veered onto a different path. Europa, the icy moon of Jupiter, may hide a deep liquid ocean beneath its frozen shell, but sunlight there is faint. If life exists, it would have to endure in another way in perpetual darkness. Habitability is not a simple switch on or off. It is a delicate balance. Just the right distance, just the right atmospheric composition, a fragile chain of suitable conditions. And among all these worlds, Earth, our blue planet, has sustained life through billions of years of upheaval. Not because it is perfect, but because it continued. Carl Sagan wrote in pale blue dot, "Look again at that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us." Seen from afar, Earth does not glitter more brightly than other planets. It is only a small blue point. Yet on that point, life took root and endured. We often ask, is Earth special because it is unique? But perhaps the gentler question is it special because it survived? In its own history, there were moments of almost massive asteroid impacts, ice ages that covered nearly the entire surface, extinction events that erased most living species. And each time, life did not disappear entirely. It contracted. It transformed. It found new ways to persist. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles are not merely barriers. Sometimes they become the path toward a new form. Earth is not special because it never faced danger. It is special because it passed through it. And perhaps so are you. There are seasons in life when we feel like an almost world, almost kept a relationship, almost achieved a dream, almost became the version of ourselves we once imagined. We look at the branches of the past and wonder if things had shifted slightly. Would I be entirely different? But perhaps what deserves our gaze is not what almost happened. It is what is happening. You are still here. Not because you were never wounded, not because you never lost, but because you continued. Nietzsche wrote in Twilight of the Idols that which does not kill us makes us stronger. The phrase is often heard as a hard encouragement. Yet in the context of a planet, it carries a softer meaning. Upheavals do not only injure, they also restructure. The Earth of today is not the primordial Earth. It has changed with every crisis, and within that change, life found forms that fit. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine Earth from afar, not as the center of the cosmos, just a small dot within vast darkness. We are not special because we are the only ones. We are special because we endure, and in that endurance there is a quiet beauty. You do not need to be a perfect world. You do not need to be the only planet capable of shining. As long as you are here breathing, thinking, feeling, you are a survivor in the deepest sense. The almost worlds teach us about fragility. Earth teaches us about persistence, and perhaps your story does too. Let that thought settle like a gentle blue light in the night. Not loud, not proud, just a steady presence. You are not special because you are unique. You are special because you are still here. There is a hypothesis that sounds like a work of science fiction, that our entire universe with its galaxies, its stars, its wandering planets, and even you might exist inside a black hole. Not the black holes we observe at the centers of galaxies, but a black hole belonging to some larger parent universe. Let us slow down for a moment. In physics, a black hole is described as a region of space where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape once it has crossed a boundary known as the event horizon, a threshold without a visible line. Once passed, information seems to be held within. But what lies inside the equations of general relativity speak not only of collapse. They also suggest that within a black hole, the structure of space-time may continue in ways we do not yet fully understand. Some physicists have asked, could what we call the Big Bang be the inner surface of a black hole in another universe? Not as a claim, only as a contemplation. If that were true, our universe might be a child world born from the collapse of a massive star somewhere else. And the black holes within our own universe perhaps might contain other universes inside them. Nested universes. Like Russian dolls, one within another. The thought can send a faint shiver through us. Not because it is frightening, but because it reveals how fragile our understanding truly is. Blaise Pascal once wrote in Pensée, "The eternal silence of these infinite spaces frightens me." Yet perhaps if we listen more carefully, that silence is not a threat. It is only a reminder that we are not at the center of everything, and that can be freeing. If our universe is part of a larger structure, then our questions are not meaningless. They are simply unfolding at one layer within a vast narrative. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Everything is interwoven, and the web is holy." Though he knew nothing of black holes or cosmology, the image of a woven network still resonates. Perhaps these nested universes are not fragmentation but continuation. Imagine yourself standing before an event horizon. Not a physical boundary, but the limit of understanding. You can see up to it, but you cannot cross it with your present awareness. Life may be like that as well. There are questions without complete answers. There are losses, events, moments whose inside we cannot see. They resemble our own event horizons where information seems to vanish. Yet what we do not see does not mean it does not exist. Carl Jung wrote in The Red Book, "The soul demands your folly, not your wisdom." Sometimes accepting that we do not understand everything, that there are layers beyond logic, becomes a quiet maturation of the soul. If our universe resides within a black hole, that does not make our experiences smaller. It simply places them within a broader context. And perhaps, rather than fearing such an idea, we can feel a gentle humility. We do not need to grasp the entire structure of reality to belong within it. We do not need to know whether a parent universe surrounds us. We only need to breathe within the space-time we are given. Tonight, imagine the universe as a space nested within another space. Not to feel lost, but to sense the depth of existence. You are not the absolute center, but you are part of this structure. And if there are deeper layers we have yet to see, that does not diminish the meaning of your life. It only makes it more mysterious. A slight shiver, but not fear. Just another widening of the question. And as you close your eyes, perhaps you will find yourself drifting across a gentle event horizon, not of a black hole, but of sleep, where you do not need to understand, only to let go. And in that letting go, the universe, whether child or parent, continues quietly unfolding. After all the galaxies, the black holes, the wandering planets, we return to something very close. A soft mass of tissue resting inside your skull. A small brain trying to understand a vast universe. There is something profoundly strange in this idea, that the equations describing the expansion of space, the hypotheses of nested universes, the reflections on life itself, all of it arises within a structure weighing just over a kilogram. Your brain contains about 86 billion neurons. Each neuron can connect to thousands of others. The number of these connections exceeds the number of stars in the Milky Way. And within that network, consciousness emerges. The brain is as wondrous as a galaxy. When you sleep, this becomes even clearer. Sleep is not the shutting off of consciousness. It is a transition of state. In non-REM sleep, the brain enters slow-wave activity. Electrical rhythms soften as though a city of lights were gradually dimming. In REM sleep, your eyes move rapidly beneath closed lids, and the brain becomes almost as active as when you are awake. Yet the body remains still. In REM, you dream. Sigmund Freud wrote in The Interpretation of Dreams, "Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious." Though Freud's perspective is no longer considered complete, the idea that dreams open a path into deeper layers of the mind still resonates. In dreams, memories and emotions are rearranged. Fragmented images become stories. The brain experiments, connects, heals. And while you sleep, another system quietly works, the glymphatic system. Cerebrospinal fluid circulates more actively, washing away metabolic waste accumulated during the day. Sleep is not merely dreaming, it is cleansing. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Perhaps sleep is the time when the soul is gently rinsed so that in the morning we may color ourselves anew with different thoughts. As you lie here listening to these slow words, your brain is still active. It is forming images of planets, of molecular clouds, of black holes. It is weaving what you hear into your own memories. And then as you drift into sleep, those connections will continue to be refined. Carl Jung wrote in the Red Book, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Yet in sleep, those two directions merge. You dream, and at the same time you are looking inward. Perhaps the fact that a small brain can contemplate a vast universe is not a paradox. It is part of the same unfolding. The universe organized itself into stars, into planets, into organic molecules, and eventually into structures capable of wondering about their own origin. You are the way the universe reflects upon itself. This thought need not make us proud. It may simply soften us. For if your brain is as intricate as a galaxy, then the moments when it feels tangled, tired, or lost are not shameful. It is merely processing an immense amount of information. Tonight, you do not need to think any further. Your brain will continue its work. It will clear away. It will restructure. It will weave scattered memories into new meaning. You only need to breathe. Inhale and exhale. Like the universe expanding. Like neurons sending signals. Like dreams beginning to form at the edge of awareness. Not to decipher everything, only to sense that within this small skull there is a space as vast as the night sky. And as you drift into REM, as the first images arise behind closed eyes, remember, this is not loss of control. It is another journey. A small brain continuing to explore a great universe in its own way, and you may let it do so. In that gentle trust, sleep arrives not as emptiness, but as a doorway opening into an inner galaxy, where you do not need to understand, only to dream. After wandering through rogue planets and distant molecular clouds, let us return to somewhere very near. Your skin, your heartbeat, the blood flowing quietly beneath soft tissue. Perhaps you have never considered this, but your body is glowing. Not with a brilliance visible to the naked eye, but with faint photons emitted from biochemical reactions within your cells. Energy exchanges at the molecular level produce a subtle light, a delicate form of bioluminescence. You are a luminous being. The light is simply too gentle for you to see. If there were a camera sensitive enough, it could record those tiny flickers. And when we think of this, we may smile softly. The universe does not shine only through the stars. It shines through you. Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. And not only made of it, we continue similar energy reactions on a smaller scale. Within you, there are about 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels. If stretched out, they could wrap around the Earth more than twice. In every moment, your heart pumps blood through this network, carrying oxygen and nutrients to each cell. You do not need to command it. You do not need to remind it. Your body knows how to sustain life. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change." Your body is living proof of this. Cells die and are replaced. Skin renews itself. Blood circulates. There is no fixed state, only movement. And when we think of regeneration, we may remember the axolotl, the small amphibian capable of regrowing limbs, even regenerating parts of its heart or brain. Biology shows that the potential for recovery exists in nature to astonishing degrees. Human beings cannot regrow an arm. Yet your body can still heal wounds, regenerate tissue, adapt to change. And your soul, though not a physical organ, carries its own capacity for restoration. Nietzsche wrote in Ecce Homo, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." The phrase is often interpreted harshly, but in biological terms it carries another nuance. The body does not merely endure, it learns, it adjusts. You do not merely exist, you adapt. What humbles us is the realization that we control very little of these processes. We do not think of each red blood cell. We do not issue commands to the immune system. We do not program the autonomic nervous system. And what fills us with quiet awe is that all of this is happening within us. On days when you feel you have done nothing, your body is doing countless things. Repairing, reorganizing, maintaining balance. Carl Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Perhaps at the deepest level, your body has always been becoming itself, constantly adjusting to sustain life. And the journey of the soul may be much the same. Tonight, as you lie down, place a hand upon your chest. Feel your heartbeat. It is not merely a mechanical motion. It is the sign of a refined system working for you. You do not need to shine like a star to have worth. You are already shining in your own way. There is no need to travel far in search of wonder. It lives within each vessel, each cell, each breath. Inhale and exhale. Your body has known how to do this since before you were aware of it. Perhaps the most healing realization tonight is that you are not a fragile object adrift in an endless universe. You are part of the same creative process, simply at a different scale. Humbled because we are small before the complexity within ourselves. Proud because we are the place where that complexity unfolds. And in that recognition, you may soften. No need to strive further. No need to prove anything. Your body is already a miracle, quiet, enduring, glowing in the dark. And you may allow it to continue while you drift gently into sleep with the tender sense that you have always been enough. There is a fire burning in the core of the sun, not the fire of wood or coal, not a chemical reaction as we know it, but the fusion of tiny nuclei, hydrogen becoming helium, releasing immense energy. Nuclear fusion. In a star's core, the pressure is so immense that nuclei, though positively charged and naturally repelling one another, are forced close enough for the strong nuclear force to bind them together. From that union, light is born. The light you see each morning. The light that nourishes forests, oceans, and your own body. Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "The nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood were made in the interiors of collapsing stars." Not only does our matter come from stars, our energy through the long chain of photosynthesis and biochemistry also traces back to that stellar light. And then, on a small corner of Earth, human beings construct machines like ITER, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, to recreate fusion. Not in the heart of a star, but within vacuum chambers confined by powerful magnetic fields. We are trying to learn how to burn like stars, not to destroy, but to generate cleaner, more sustainable energy. There is something deeply beautiful in this aspiration. We do not merely gaze at the stars, we learn from them. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." If fusion can provide energy without harming the hive of Earth, then learning to shine like a star becomes an act of harmony, not intrusion. Yet beyond engineering and technology, there is another layer of meaning. Near light-speed travel, the idea that fusion engines might one day propel ships across interstellar distances far faster than chemical rockets, reflects a profound human longing not only to live upon one planet, but to reach distant horizons. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." Perhaps within us there is also a kind of inner fusion, ideas colliding, merging, giving rise to the light of creativity. But unlike black holes or supernovas, stellar fusion is not a brief, violent event. It is a patient process lasting billions of years. The sun does not explode each day. It burns steadily. Perhaps this is the deeper lesson. We often imagine burning as something intense, blazing passion, dazzling success. But stars do not shine through dramatic bursts. They shine through stability. To learn how to burn like a star may not mean to erupt. It may mean to endure, to sustain kindness, to sustain curiosity, to sustain the capacity to love. Albert Camus wrote in The Myth of Sisyphus, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. Even if we never reach distant planets, the very effort to understand and recreate fusion is already an expression of that longing. Tonight, as you lie still, imagine the core of a star. No noise, no spectacle, only nuclei merging little by little, producing light. Perhaps there is such a core within you as well. No need to blaze before every gaze. Only to continue merging the scattered parts of yourself, memories, dreams, fears, into a gentle source of energy. You are not a supernova. You may be a stable star. And if humanity can learn to harness fusion without destroying its home, perhaps you too can learn to use your inner energy without harming yourself." Inhale and exhale. The light of a star can take millions of years to travel from its core to its surface. Your own light may also need time to emerge. No need to hurry, no need to explode. Simply continue quietly, steadily, like an engine of the stars. And within that steadiness, you may find a warmth, not the heat of a consuming flame, but a glow gentle enough to carry you into sleep. We wish to learn how to burn like stars, but perhaps first, we only need to learn how to shine just enough. And now, after we have passed through the first expansions of space, through stars crystallizing into diamonds, through wandering planets and molecular clouds, scented like rum at the center of the Milky Way, through hypotheses of universes nested inside black holes, and even through the quiet dreams within your small brain, the voice may slow. Not to summarize, not to gather everything into a neat conclusion, only to set it down. You do not need to understand it all. The universe is still expanding. At this very moment, the space between galaxies is stretching just a little more. Stars are still fusing hydrogen in their cores. Black holes remain silently at the centers of galaxies. Everything continues whether you think about it or not. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." Perhaps after all these journeys outward, the quietest place is within. We have spoken of Earth's humility, a planet not unique, yet still enduring. We have spoken of the brain, a small structure capable of contemplating a vast cosmos. And now, we may accept something simpler. We do not need to hold the entire map in order to be on the journey. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensée Ma, "Is but a reed the most feeble thing in nature? but he is a thinking reed. A fragile reed, yet one that thinks. That fragility does not render us meaningless. It makes us human. You are small, but not meaningless. Small in space, yes. Small in time, perhaps. But in this moment, you are the place where the universe becomes aware of itself, and you do not need to do anything more than that. All our lives, we may feel urged to understand more, know more, control more. But the universe does not demand this. It does not set a final examination on the structure of reality. Carl Sagan wrote in pale blue dot, "Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark." Yet he also reminded us that on that small speck reside all those we have ever loved, all the stories ever told. Smallness does not erase meaning. It simply places meaning within a broader frame. Tonight, you do not need to decipher dark energy. You do not need to decide whether our universe lies inside another black hole. You do not need to know exactly what your dreams are doing in REM sleep. You only need to be here. Inhale and exhale. The universe is not in a hurry. Galaxies are not anxious. Space does not blame itself for not fully understanding its own nature. Perhaps you may offer yourself the same gentleness. Nietzsche wrote in "Thus spoke Zarathustra," remain true to the earth. Perhaps this is not only a call to remain grounded in matter. It is a reminder that this life, finite, fragile, is already enough for full presence. You do not need to become a star to have value. You are already part of the story of stars. And as these words grow softer, as your breath becomes more even, perhaps you will realize that the most precious part of this journey is not the facts learned, but this feeling, the sense of connection of being placed within a greater whole without being erased. The universe does not require you to understand it in order to belong within it. It only asks you to be present. Present with your heartbeat. Present with the gentle rhythm of breath. Present with the truth that you are existing in an unrepeatable moment. Out there, galaxies continue to turn. Within your consciousness may slowly drift towards sleep. There is no contradiction between these two. Only an expansion from the vast universe to the smaller space of a dream. And within that expansion, you may lay down the unfinished questions. You are small, but you are not meaningless. You do not need to understand everything to deserve existence. Just be here. Just breathe. Just be you.